Just a warning, I'll be talking about some serious themes. We'll be changing mood a little bit in here for a moment. It has been another devastating week as two Israelis in their 20s, one of whom was engaged to be married, were murdered in a terrorist attack at a bar in Tel Aviv on Thursday night. A third victim, a former Olympic athlete who represented Israel and was the father of 3 children, died yesterday. 11 others were injured in the attack. In the past weeks, 13 Israelis have lost their lives in terrorist attacks. We're heartbroken for the families of the victims and for the Jewish people. It's difficult to enter the season of Pesach, which our sages called Zman Cherutenu, the time of our freedom, at a time of such fear and grief in Israel. Once again, we question whether our dream will ever be realized, Lihiot Am Chofshi Be'artzenu, to be a free people in our own land. In 2002, during the Second Intifada, Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin described standing on a balcony in Jerusalem directly overlooking Cafe Moment, where days before a suicide bomber had blown himself up, killing 11 Israelis, including a young couple about to be married. Describing the scene at the destroyed cafe, he wrote, "Amidst the rubble and devastation, the flowers and candles left by mourners was a defiant and poignant banner that captured, like nothing else, the grief and resolve of our Jewish family in Israel who face uncertainty and sorrow every single day. The banner proclaimed, Bochim, 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 v'hamshich hala. We cry, we cry, we cry, and then we continue to go on. So we cry, and then we go into our season of freedom and the joy of Pesach. The Shabbat before Pesach is called Shabbat Hagadol, the Great Sabbath. Though this particular Shabbat has had this name since the 12th century, the reason for the name is not entirely clear. As one medieval source notes, the Shabbat before Pesach, the people are accustomed to call it Shabbat Hagadol, and they do not know why. One traditional reason is that on this Shabbat, Jews had to listen to a drasha gdolah, an unusually long sermon in the synagogue. Maybe not a great sermon, but certainly a long one. Another is that the name is derived from this Haftorah that we just read, which contains this verse from the prophet Malachi. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of Adonai, Yom Adonai Hagadol v'Hanorah. Another reason for the name is that on this Shabbat we celebrate a Nes Gadol, a great miracle that occurred before the Israelites left Egypt. The Midrash offers several explanations for what this miracle was. Here's an especially interesting one. When the Israelites took the lambs for their Pesach offerings on that Shabbat, the firstborn Egyptians asked what the Israelites were doing. They replied that this was a Pesach offering for God, who was going to kill the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. All the Egyptian firstborn then went to their fathers and demanded that they liberate the Israelite slaves. They said, "Everything that Moshe has said has come true. Don't you want us to live? Let us get the Hebrews out of our homes. Otherwise, we are dead." The fathers answered, "Even if all of Egypt dies, they are not leaving." So all the firstborn gathered in front of Pharaoh and screamed, "Please remove this nation from our midst. Because of them, evil will befall us and you." Pharaoh said to his servants, "Remove them and break their knees." So what did the firstborn do? Each firstborn son took a sword and killed his father. The Midrash says 600,000 fathers were killed by their firstborn son. In order to recall this Nes Gadol, this great miracle, the Shabbat preceding Pesach earned the title Shabbat Hagadol. What are we to make of this Midrashic story about the rebellion of the Egyptian firstborn? Consider that Egyptian society was rigidly hierarchical, built on domination and subordination. As Rabbi Ari Khan writes, this was a society built on primogeniture. The firstborn had absolute power within the family unit. Pharaoh, as firstborn of the firstborn, ruled all of Egypt. The other firstborn sons controlled the non-firstborn Egyptians, and these ordinary Egyptians ruled over the taskmasters, who in turn dominated the slaves. Rabbi Kahn says that the visual representation of this rigid social structure is the pyramid. The Midrash thus records the overturning of the Egyptian pyramid scheme, the beginning of an internal breakdown of Egyptian society, a violent war between the generations in which the hatred that the Egyptians inflicted on their Israelite slaves now came to poison their own relationships with one another. Our Haftorah, though, for this Shabbat offers a dramatically different vision. The prophet Malachi tells us that on the coming Yom Hagadol, the great messianic day of judgment, God will send Elijah the prophet, who will turn the heart of the parents to the children and the heart of the children to their parents. Malachi promises a day when the generation gap will be healed, when parents will turn to their children, listening to them with love and respect, seeking to understand their concerns, and children will turn to their elders with the same love and respect, seeking to learn from their wisdom and their experience. This beautiful vision of generations turning to one another and coming together gives me hope. Jews have always found strength and comfort in difficult times by drawing closer to family and to community. Our brothers and sisters in Israel are doing just that as they prepare for their Pesach celebrations. And so are we as we get ready to sit at our own Seder tables, all the generations together, to celebrate our dream of freedom. On Independence Day, in the midst of the Second Intifada, banners throughout Jerusalem proclaimed, Namshich lichiot et hachalom, we continue to live the dream.